All right, so thank you, Citris Foundry, for having us today. We're going to be talking about hypothesis-based prototyping, and this session is brought to you by Imagine I5. So Imagine I5, we are two co-founders. My name is Sarah Kalick. I'm a medical device engineer. I worked on cardiac and neuro devices, and I also consult in a pediatric accelerator and beyond for medical devices. I'm also currently an MBA candidate at UC Berkeley. Adriana, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Adriana Peñuela, originally from Colombia. I am one of the co-founders of Imagine I5, and I am an engineer in the agricultural industry. And I volunteer in EWB, so Engineers Without Borders, around the world. I am also a UC Berkeley MBA candidate, and yeah, my heart is very close to like this development around the world and seeing things differently from the social impact lens.
Yeah, thanks, Adriana. And what Imagine I5 is we're a creative think tank dedicated to social impact. So we offer consulting services ranging from ideation all the way through to product launch, as well as these sort of workshops to really help people along. We really do believe that everybody has the right to co-create the future, and that's what we're all about. So feel free to reach out to us into the future. We'll give a little bit more contact information at the end. All right, to start off, we were wondering if you guys can fill out the poll that Adriana is going to launch here. What stage is your company, is your project company in now? So if you could just kind of complete that poll for me.
Yeah, so is it early on in ideation, or are you empathizing with the customer, figure out the landscape, or is it like prototyping? We heard that some of you are prototyping right now. Is it in the marketing space? You're developing the business plan, you're raising money, or you're like very far along and raise a ton of money and you're ready to make the big bucks? Like, where are you at?
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and end that poll so you can see the results. So majority of you all are in prototyping, so that's good. You came at the right time, so I'm glad to hear that. Empathizing with your customer, we do have a lot of that in our session today. You know, understanding the questions and assumptions that you're gonna face. So hopefully we can help you out there too. All right. And then one more into the chat, could you please put, what problem are you solving? You know, kind of put out your problem statement. We're pretty curious about that.
Okay, so I see that Yo Afosu, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So you're making diagnosis and monitoring of red blood cell diseases to make it more accessible. Nice, that's pretty cool. I see that Navid is developing a therapeutic ultrasound system. Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah. I had a child just recently, so that's really good. And then Eric is saying that we're helping companies who are struggling to create rich client-side applications and need results quickly and inexpensively. Okay, that's pretty cool. And I think I jumped over Kara's inequity in validation for grassroots NGOs and developing trust in NGOs. Ooh, that's really important. Ken is reducing the pesticides used by informing farmers when there is a disease pressure. Cool. So that's, oh yeah, and Joe, yeah. I know Joe's problem because he interviewed my husband. So soon to be that's done. Don't have enough time to go through and read the studies and get up to speed in what's going on with being a dad. So that's really cool. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing with us. So we're gonna go ahead. Oh, I think I missed Matthias. Matthias is in the physical therapy. It's expensive and very time intensive. So it is hard to know, well, that you're recovering. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So thank you for sharing with us your problem statement. I think that's really good to like align and figure out like who we are and what we're doing here. So thank you for sharing. We're gonna go ahead and continue with what prototyping is, so Sarah can take us through that.
Awesome. All right, so what is prototyping and what do I prototype? So, you know, as I'm sure you know, our session is called hypothesis-based prototyping. So we're gonna, a method So a method for evaluating a prototype is you first start out with a hypothesis. You need to evaluate whether you can accept or reject that hypothesis or tweak that hypothesis. So you're looking to hear feedback. So the intention is to as quickly as possible, create something that can answer that hypothesis. And that something can be, can have a range. It can be a sketch. It can be a form. There's many different ways to keep the prototype simple. So we'll go into that a little bit more detail. So how do I prototype? So just at a high level here, we start off first with a product story. So, you want to understand your user and your problem statement. So as a user, I want to blank so I can blank. That's a statement that you can put together from the perspective of the user in order to develop your problem statement. So after you have a problem statement, you're going to write down what your assumptions are and what your questions are about your user. And you're going to develop a hypothesis off of those questions and assumptions. Right? The hypothesis is really to understand whether your assumptions are accurate. Then the next step would be to start prototyping. What we're going to focus on mostly today is low fidelity prototyping. And the reason that is it's really important that you consider your effort and time and cost in developing your prototype and how quickly you can get a response. So you really want to keep it simple, especially early on. And after you kind of start, you develop out a quick, rapid prototype, a low fidelity prototype, you want to get some feedback and iterate off of that. So you want to ask as many questions as possible. You want to show people your prototype, learn from them, listen, and make your next iteration, and then do this all over again. And you have to, along the way, you need to start to evaluate, when you can start having a higher fidelity prototypes. But that's a long process. So. What are some prototyping tools? Before I get into that, I want to comment, you do not need tech tools to prototype. And in fact, especially at the beginning, these tools can get in the way of rapidly iterating and getting feedback from your target market. So, the lower the cost, the lower the effort at the beginning, and you can still get your hypothesis answered, the better. You don't need to go directly into like building an app or wireframing. You're just kind of skipping some steps if we go right to wireframing. So let's look here at low fidelity, low cost, quick to build, rough creation. Some examples are pen and paper sketches, cardboard, Google Forms, really honestly items that you have existing around your home. Like I'm just gonna give you a quick example, like a phone can be utilized as a weight. And if you can understand the weight of your phone, maybe it can be something like a wearable device. Okay, so I understand that at 5 pounds, that's too much for my customer. That even a random item around the home is helpful. PowerPoints, clickable PDFs are some examples of a low fidelity prototype. Medium fidelity prototypes, slightly more detailed, still rough, closer to solution. Some examples of that are painted, like an item painted for a look, basic physical items also around the home, maybe something a little bit more developed at that point, wireframing using Balsamic or Miro. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those tools. We can give you those references. Maybe some sort of web template, such as Wix, a quick 3D prints. Those are just a few medium fidelity. And then when you get to high fidelity, you're going to be closer to the final MVP. And so detailed, more time consuming, more money to build that out. So some examples are Proto.io wireframes, precise 3D prints, supplier made prototypes, a coded app or website, CAD assemblies using SolidWorks or AutoCAD. Any questions? I think I heard somebody that wanted to speak. Any questions so far? So we're gonna kind of stop here really quick. It's like, at what prototyping fidelity stage are you? So if you can kind of take that poll.
I think there's a difference where we are versus where we should be.
Well, that's a good, can you expand on that a bit more? Because I know we always feel like we should be farther along because we have to, go as quickly as possible. Can you expand on that feeling a bit more?
So I think we jumped from low fidelity to high fidelity without doing the middle fidelity. And right now we're seeing that our high fidelity is like taking a lot of time. We're developing an app, which is taking a lot of time. And then we're not even sure that that's like exactly the features we want to have in our final app. So that's why I'm like, maybe we should have thought more about mid fidelity testing.
Yeah. Well, I definitely would look at Balsamic for that because it's so easy. Or even like a clickable PDF is great. I know that that might be even a little bit more low fidelity, but I totally understand you. It's super easy to go right to like, I have an idea. Let's build out the app. But yeah, usually we're gonna see that we don't fully understand our customers. So that's awesome that you recognize that. That's great. I think that's a good place to be. At least like, I know that I need to step back a bit more. So I'm gonna end the poll here. So most of you guys are at low fidelity prototyping, which is awesome. That's what we're gonna be focusing on primarily today. But you know, we will provide some references for mid and high, as you saw earlier. So we can help you out too.
Jump in real quick here.
Yeah.
And say that even if you are at high fidelity with an app or the product that you're building, you can still use low fidelity prototyping to test new features, right, Matthias? Like if you have something, like you can use low fidelity prototyping at any stage you're at to test your hypothesis. So it's not something that you have to do just at the beginning.
Totally. Thanks, Kara, for adding that in. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm in the medical device industry, and anytime we want to add in something new, we're going back to low fidelity prototyping each time. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. All right, so what are some examples of low fidelity prototypes? You see sketches here, even taking like a household item like a watch and just like taping a sheet of paper on top of it, some cardboard, a weight, you see a form, sticky notes. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about developing low fidelity prototype. And at the end of this, in the middle of this session, you're going to get to think about specifically for your project how you would go about developing a low fidelity prototype pretty quickly. So I just wanted to go through an example because on our sheet that we're gonna share with you is we use a washing machine as an example throughout. So we're gonna look at the long prototyping process of a washing machine. So this is something that we all experience. We all understand what a washing machine is. So the first step is really you have information out there, or you might have information out there for your product as well. What are your competitors doing? So for a washing machine, we probably go and read all the customer reviews on Amazon, understand what is our customer wants and needs, what are their complaints. That's a really good source of data because those are the customers that you're potentially going to want to bring into your product and your company. And then, another opportunity is to sketch it out or to use some sort of PowerPoint to to kind of visually see and be able to discuss what the washing machine might look like, build out some cardboard. There's a long process here. You can then after a while, you can start getting into plywood, starting CAD 3D printing. And it isn't until about a year and a half into the project that this prototype washing machine, we had sourcing from suppliers to make the parts. So it's a long process. You don't need to rush it. It's really important that you don't invest as much time and money at the beginning until you really understand what the problem is. So into the chat, what tools are you using to prototype right now? We're just curious to get to know what you're thinking about, what you're using.
So for Imagine 5, we have been using a lot of forms. We have been using PowerPoint presentations. We have been using videos, checking our videos out in order to see like, okay, how are ideas coming across, and are we reaching the right audiences and everything like that. So I see a bunch of input. So Matthias is saying joins and PowerPoint, forms, WhatsApp. Calvin is talking about Figma. Eric is using quick HTML, CSS mocks, and Photoshop. Anything from PP rolls, tape to Figma to SolidWorks. Nice. So So Joe just added a question. So what are your opinions on using video prototype versus say a clickable PowerPoint prototype to test your app idea to test users?
Can you describe more when you say a video prototype?
Yeah. So sorry. So when I talk about video prototype, I'm talking about like, let's say if you use like Figma or Adobe XD or something, and you just basically made a click through like video that's like 30 seconds or something, where you show, oh, okay, hey, this is kind of the flow of the app in itself, and you use that to show people that you want to get feedback from, or that, or like the other route of like the PDF or the clickable PowerPoint route. The reason why I ask that is because I get two very different opinions. Some people say, oh yeah, the video is like the best way to do it. Me personally, I don't think that is, and that's why I asked the question, just because I have not really ventured into that route to try doing the video test route.
Oh, Kira, let's take that.
I was like, I have a little bit of opinion on that, is that I would put those into two different camps. I would say that a video is a demo, and it's a great way to show a product or like where you are in your progress, but it's not a prototype. Like, it's not a way to test, to allow yourself the opportunity to look at how your user is engaging with your product. And when you're prototyping something, like if you have, it's too passive. Like, you want to see how the user is engaging with the thing that you have, and that will inform the answer to your hypothesis. Yes, these are great, useful features that people find valuable, or we're really meeting this pain point because I see an emotional response from some part of their engagement with this. But passively watching a video is like showing them what you could have them engage with in the future. That's just my personal take on it.
Yeah, and if I could add to Kira's, like for us, imagine if we use our videos to analyze what is coming across the right way. So like, yeah, if we are having a discussion and we see in the video like someone reacting poorly, maybe we have to figure out a way to change the message around, because the product itself is a workshop. So it depends on the nature of the tool prototype that you're using. But I do agree that, yeah, like having the clickable and seeing like where people get lost, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, and to pair to Adriana's, just if there was a video, if you can get an immediate response, like that might be helpful. But I agree on the just being active part, like actively seeing them, because people can say something and then they could do something else. So you want to make sure that there's some sort of alignment on that. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Adriana here, and I'm actually going to send you guys a worksheet to fill out. This is for your own product development, so you'll see that on the chat.
Yeah, you can download the worksheet, and it is a editable PDF, so that you can write on it, okay, and save it for your files. Okay, so during our session today, so we have been talking for about 23 minutes already, but now we're gonna get into the meat of the topic. So we have developed this worksheet that had like 5 stages. So we call it our cycle of like prototyping. And so we are gonna go into identifying the user and problem statement. That was a little bit of what we sent out yesterday for you to start thinking through and fill up. Then we're gonna go into identifying the questions and assumptions that we're gonna ask. We're gonna create hypotheses, and then test, like identify how are like low fidelity prototype tools that we can use in order to test those hypotheses before we jump into the medium or high fidelity types of prototyping. And then we have a tool in order to prioritize the hypotheses in order to figure out like which ones are the ones that you want to go after right now versus the ones that we're going to go after in a little bit later or different stages. Yeah, so then we'll get to play with it a little bit. Okay, so in the first portion of your worksheet, you're gonna see the why, problem, and user. So it is very important for you to know and identify your company's why. Like, why are you doing this? Why do you care? Why is this an issue for you? Like, is it because someone in your family was sick from a particular disease? Or is it because you're bothered by X, Y, or Z? Or is it, yeah, so like the idea of coming up with this is for a reason. Like maybe Joe didn't find any apps or any documents that quickly told him how to be a dad. I don't know if you're a dad, Joe, but I'm just thinking out loud here. So yeah, that's very important. And then you wanna go and identify the problem statement. So in the problem statement, you wanna know and note like who are you solving the issue for? What are you doing in order to do so? And yeah, so like for example, in the problems, so in let me go back up. So General Electric Appliances, why is to create a product that makes household chores easier. Okay, so make my life easier by doing laundry. Okay, so the problem statement is that busy homeowners in large cities struggle to have enough space to fit a washing machine in their homes. So, and often opt to, instead of, to go to a laundromat and wash their clothes. Well, there's no other option, right? So if you cannot fit a washing machine in your closet and there is not the appropriate connections in order to do so, like you have to go to a laundromat. And for me in particular, like if I have a, as I mentioned, I have a baby at 10 months old. So I wanted to do cloth diapers, but I don't feel comfortable going to a laundromat and doing cloth diapering right there. So maybe it is an inconvenience for me in that case. So that's something to take a look. And yeah, in these large cities, small apartments are a thing. So then you identify the target user. So the target user that we identify here is busy homeowners living in large cities with small apartments, such as families with children or working professionals. So take about a couple minutes, 3 minutes or so to fill up that first portion of your worksheet. So fill up your why, your problem statement, and your target user. Okay, so does anyone want to share their why at this point? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you having those slumber sleeps?
Maybe I can go. My name is Sol. Myself and Eric Raul, who's also on the call, are working on a company called UI Flow. Why for us is that both of us actually has quite a bit of experience working on building web applications in a both small and large scale. And we have seen inefficiencies on building front end part of the web applications. So it's coming out of our own frustrations that this process can be better.
So it is a frustration for you. So yeah, you want to solve it. Nice. Okay. So we hear about the problem statements earlier. And yeah, so through that we can identify the target user. Does anyone want to share their target user?
I can go ahead. So we want to develop PT tools or app or a way to communicate with a PT. But our target user is most likely athletic people that know how to use smartphones, that have a particular issue with physical therapy, which is either not reimbursed, so it's too expensive, or it takes too much time during their day to really like go to the PT, do like a session during working hours and go back home and lose half a day.
Interesting. So it's like busy individuals that have PT issues that don't have time to spend for PT.
Exactly.
Kind of your product.
Don't mind. I'm going to throw one out there for you guys to look into. Look up people with transmandibular joint disorder. So TMJ, huge market for you guys with PT. So just for your own research, yeah.
I was also going to say, you probably want to also target non-athletic people because non-athletic people hurt themselves just as much, if not more, than the athletic people.
Yeah.
Good. Really important. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay. So now that we know our why and our problem statement and our user, like let's go to the next stage. So we're going to talk about the questions and assumptions that you want to ask yourself about your user. So I am assuming things about my user that may be right, may be totally wrong, because I'm not in their shoes, right? So you have to ask and figure out ways to critically ask this question in order to figure what are they thinking. So is my problem statement reflective of the use of the actual problem, or is it a surface problem that we are figure out? So what am I assuming about the user is what we're asking here. And then the second question is like, what kind of questions do I have about the problem or the user that I don't know yet? They're like things that, I don't know, like if this is an actual problem or not. So like those are things that we want to consider. And then one more bit that is good to ask is how might I be inclusive with my solution? So maybe seatbelts, whenever they were invented maybe for men. They didn't take into consideration pregnant women, or I don't know, like other methods of holding a person into a car. So like things like that, and like that have transcended through time are also an important thing to remember, to question, and to not only assume it as an answer. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, what we're gonna have here is have you write the questions and assumptions that you have in your head about your product. So we give you a couple of examples. So in terms of questions for our washing machine problem, we're saying, what is the maximum space customers will have to store their washer and dryer units? So like, how big is that closet that you're thinking of? What room or space have available water sources for washers? So I have to put water into this thing and then put the waste into something. So maybe like being very far away. I think Kara is not seeing the slides. Is everyone seeing the slides? Okay. Maybe Kara, maybe your internet is a little bit jumpy. Let's see. I'm gonna continue and let us know if you don't see it, or maybe we can send you, yeah, or log out and log back in. Thank you, Kara. Here. So other questions that I can have about my washing machine is, what is the minimum load size that like how big is my family and how much washing do I have to do? And how often am I going to wash laundry? And what items are the customer washing? So like, is it heavy stuff? Is it like light stuff? Those are like all good questions to ask about this washing machine problem. And in terms of assumptions, our customers do laundry 1 time per week on average. So you see that assumptions may be tied to the questions, but they don't have to be. They can be separate entities and items. So our customers want a stackable washer and dryer sets. Some do, some others don't. It depends on the layout of that little closet that you have, right? Our customers prefer separate washer and dryer units rather than one combined unit, maybe. Our customers will wash items ranging from cloth diapers to jeans, maybe. Our customers have limited time to do laundry. Okay, so go ahead and you have about 5 more minutes to start writing down like what questions, your questions and your assumptions about your product.
Should these be open-ended questions generally?
Yes.
Can you maybe clarify the question, Kira, and then maybe we can better answer it?
Yeah, I was just thinking like, I mean, just even from Foundry's perspective, right, as a provider of some service to a user base, like, you know, some of the things that come to mind for me are like, is like coaching versus like workshops more valuable? Is that a useful question to ask? Or is that also like the assumptions around that both of those, you know, that I'm already kind of assuming that they have value or that one would be more important than the other, or things like, you know, our program is suitable for both graduate students and undergraduates, or like questions like, what readiness level are we most impactful for?
Yeah, I think those are all really great questions for Citris Foundry. Just to clarify, yeah, they can be open-ended, and as you evaluate, I mean, maybe speak to at the end of every cohort, you speak, or even throughout, maybe you don't want to wait till the end. You kind of get an idea of what people are enjoying, who is that individual, what is their context, where are they coming from, and you get to know them as well. So yeah, I think that's great to have open-ended questions that don't have to be solved during this, that won't be solved during this session.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if we go to the next slide. So now what we're gonna do is to share our questions and assumptions. So I'm gonna put you in breakout teams, and each person, we're gonna be in that breakout for 5 minutes total. So each person gets to share a couple of their questions and assumptions. So each of us are gonna listen to each other, and then maybe by that listening and questioning what others are asking themselves, that can elicit more like brainstorming of other things that you have not thought. Okay, so let's continue to the next step, and yeah. So we're gonna now create hypotheses from those questions that we have identified and the problem statement. So it is important to create like critical hypotheses. Let me just, okay. In order to figure, to have something to really test. So it like has to be something that is testable. So the structure for the hypothesis that we are sharing here is to use we believe that the solution that we choose will enable you to for the identified customer, will enable the people that live in the city that want to feed that washing machine, to make their life easy. So like for me, like my life will be easier if I could wash my daughter's diapers right here. So I don't have to go like down the stairs and, well, not leave her alone obviously, but but you know what I mean. Okay, so now we're gonna go into how does it look like for creating a hypothesis for our washing machine. Okay, so based on your questions and assumptions, we're gonna create those, and the way the example looks like is that we believe that the stacked washer and dryer will enable our city dweller customers to store the washer and dryer units in a small space. Okay, so it is testable because we're saying, like, we're not really specifying the exact size, but we could like develop that into the test and see, like, figure out like how can we ask questions around and see like, oh, what is one space that you could have in your closet in order to feed a washing machine. But yeah, okay. So that's how the hypothesis look like. And sorry, go ahead, Ikana.
Thanks, sorry about that. And we'll talk about how you can test that out in the next step. So don't worry right now, just think about your hypotheses, and we'll match that up with like a low fidelity prototype.
Yeah, so for that, like, take your questions and assumptions and feed those questions and assumptions into the hypothesis. Do you have any questions on how to do it? So we're gonna give you, we're gonna give you a little bit of time in order to create your hypothesis. So maybe 8 more minutes or so, and we're gonna create those hypotheses.
I want to emphasize the time. So I understand that all of this might be a short period of time, but take this worksheet with you and really utilize it and think about, at least it gives you a little bit of structure. So don't worry if you don't turn all your questions and assumptions into a hypothesis. Just do a few, do the best you can. And this resource, and we're a resource, is always available to you.
So how are we doing with those hypotheses? Do you need extra time or you want more time to shut? to chat and brainstorm together those hypotheses. So if you need one more minute, give me a thumbs up. Okay, well, that's good. So let's go ahead into the next activity. So the way we're gonna do it is that we're gonna fine tune our hypothesis, right? So we're gonna send you back into the breakout rooms and you're gonna use the annotate feature of Zoom. So the annotate feature of Zoom, the way it looks is if you look up in your screen, you're gonna see more options. So it's gonna do like a view options at the top and you're gonna see something that says annotate. Can you find it? And then in the annotate space, you're gonna see something that is a text, like is the second icon there. So when you text, I'm gonna be able to write into the screen that I'm at, okay? So if you try it, go ahead and try it in here if you want. I just wanna make sure that you know how to use it. Nice, awesome, okay. So
where is this? I couldn't find it.
So in the top of your screen, you're gonna see a view options on the top of the screen for Zoom. You got it? Okay, cool. So we're gonna send you into your breakout rooms, and the way this is gonna look is that you're going to annotate your hypothesis. Your partner is gonna read it back to you. And then both of you are gonna identify like the belief, the customer, and the solution. So for that hypothesis. So if you look back at the hypothesis structure that we showed you earlier. So if you go back a slide, sorry. So we believe that, we believe that this solution will enable this persona to accomplish this goal. So maybe identify, like, are you identifying the solution, the persona that you have, and the goal in there, okay?
And just for one thing to make sure I'm clear, the purpose of the annotation is just for each of us to write out our hypothesis together and we can see it at the same time, right?
Yes, exactly. So you can see it, and if the other person reads it back to you, maybe you like it activates some other questions that you have about that specific hypothesis, just like by hearing it from the other person. So that's how it would look like. So pick one or two hypotheses or as many as you want to go through. And we're gonna give you like 10 minutes, sound good for this? I think 10 minutes and we'll check on you guys. So Sarah, I think I'm gonna send it over to you to take us to the second half of the process, which is the low fidelity prototyping. So
awesome. All right, great. I'm not muted. Okay, perfect. So what are some low fidelity prototyping tools to experiment and test hypotheses? So I want to emphasize one more time that you do not need tech tools to prototype, especially at the beginning. I really want to just push that. You know, sometimes we just go right to medium or high fidelity and it slows you down from really learning about your customer and what your customer will need and what the problem statement is too, because you're sometimes refining that. So Kira had asked us to separate out hardware and software. You know, some of these, they're definitely interchangeable, like some of the low fidelity prototyping methods. But I just wanted to separate it out for a bit and we can talk more about that too later on. Everybody is hearing me okay? Just wanted to make sure. Just thumbs up if you don't mind.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So some examples for software. So pen and paper sketches. I know that, you know, just drawing out what the user interface might look like at the beginning and like seeing how they might interact, just even through like, we'll show you a video later of how you can go about doing that. Very helpful, good information early on. Google Forms and Typeform. So this is really cool. I think like, you know, if you have like a form on the front face, like let's just say that somebody, you're trying to test out like a food delivery, right? What if somebody could put into a form what they want, and you do on the back end all the ordering and everything? They have no idea. They don't know anything else except all they see is this form that they filled out. That's still testing out the software of your product. Maybe into the future you could develop out an app, or some way into the future you can develop out an app where it automatically places that order, but that's not necessary at the beginning. You're just trying to see how many customers you have. Can you actually make some sort of money off of this? So that's a good way to just have like a form as a user interface, and they're none the wiser that you're in the back end. A PowerPoint is great, clickable PDF, and reading App Store reviews. So seeing who your competitors are, or like, I know there's different types of software. Looking at your competitors, seeing what their customers are facing is just a really good start. And you get that information to evaluate your hypotheses pretty quickly. So on the hardware side, pen and paper sketches as well. I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are with industrial design, but they draw out, industrial designers draw out the product, and then they just note what the material is that they might use for that. They could use cardboard. You can kind of cut out in different cardboard pieces, kind of get the feel of it. Is it the right angle for the hand? Just an example. Also, Google Forms are a great way to get some sort of general feedback, and also reviewing Amazon store reviews if you have any if you have any competitors that are selling similar product. I know some of you noted that you're in the medical device industry, so I'm in the medical device industry as well. I would look at the social media of those competitors, because you will see comments from their customers, and oftentimes those are marked as complaints. So if there is something wrong, so you want to take note of those things too, so you can tweak, understand if your hypotheses are accurate. And that's just a really good start. I know that maybe not reviewing a review is not a perfect way, because you don't directly interact with your customer, but it's a good first step. So we're just going to show you this quick video of how you can use paper and pen to just create a prototype. So I'm going to share computer sound here.
Okay, so your task now is to open the My EE app.
Okay, I'll put my thumb on there. Cool. Nice, nice.
And now your task is to register and log in.
Okay.
The next task is to remove the minutes tile from your home screen.
So you can kind of see there was some confusion about what to do. So it gave him a little bit of an idea. Adrian, do you want me to continue with this video, or would you like, maybe I can talk about it a little bit more? Just want to check in.
Yeah, we can talk about it. So yeah, in this portion, it was really interesting because he got confused and he was like, "Oh, nothing happened. Those are like critical, cool ways to test it out without having to build like an app and everything." So nothing's happening. So what is he gonna do next? Like, okay, like click around the whole page in order to figure out how to do the task, right?
Yeah. So a good question off of this is, how do we do this now during COVID-19, right? Because you can't be around people, there's some social distancing. Well, a great way to do this is to do a clickable PDF. and send that over to your potential user and have them share their screen and ask them questions. And you can see where they click. And I've actually gone through this, and it was very useful and like really informative. You know, where are we getting stuck? So that's a great way, very simple, easy to do. Any questions? I want to check in here. Good. All right. So we're going to do something a little bit of a sideways thinking here. It's, you know, look on top of your desk or look around and pick an object. Some creative thinking. So how would you use it to prototype your hypothesis? I know super random, get you guys thinking, but can somebody tell me a little bit about what they would do? I can give an example, and then if somebody else wants to jump in, I'd love to hear it. So let's just say I'm testing a wearable device to track brain, like let's just say neuroscience, like brain waves, right? I know it's not available quite yet, but let's just say that is the product that I want to develop. And you know, I want to understand how much weight is too much weight on, like maybe I'm kind of creating a product to sit around their head and onto their ears. What would I need to do? Maybe, you know, I can grab, I have this here. I could take out the straps and understand so this is actually a component to hold my wrists in place. And I would just take out the straps and I would kind of weigh the straps and see, okay, what is the comfort level of that? How is the weight? That's just like a really fast example that you can do. What about you guys? I want to hear what you think, or sideways thinking.
I want to jump in with something that comes to mind that people are generally familiar with, is the Google Glass. So you guys all know the Google Glass thing, and like they have this huge like prototyping garage on their site, and like very, you know, pipe cleaners and all sorts of stuff and things where they can make it. And they did all of this product testing, right, for like putting like a, you know, a little weight and testing like that hypothesis, and they're asking that. And the thing that they didn't do was think about how people would socially respond to feeling like they're being recorded from someone else's glasses. And that was part of what made that product tank, even though it fit the wearer. And like, so just to throw that out there and thinking about how, and this isn't just something that applies to hard products, but also software and things like that, is like, that's why I think it's so important to think about all of these assumptions and questions, because the social impact of that product interpersonally was more important to test than the actual product itself, even for hardware.
That's totally true. Maybe to play off of the previous example, the earlier hypothesis would be, do people want things sitting on their face? That's the previous hypothesis. And then the second hypothesis, let's just find out we say yes. Then it's like, okay, what might that look like? What's the weight of that? That is appropriate. What size? So yeah, definitely, Kira. That's like, yeah, making sure that our assumptions are considering, or our assumptions and hypotheses are considering all social aspects too, not just developing the product out.
Yeah. I love that question. Do people want something sitting on their face if you're doing some sort of like medical device scanner? Like, exactly. And then what would you do if the answer is no?
Then yeah, you got to go back to the drawing board. And that's, I think that's definitely an important piece. Like so to kind of add on to that, let's just say you're developing hardware. If you look at examples in industrial design, people design out 30, 40, just a bunch of drawings of potential ways that the product might look and feel. And it doesn't have to be the same like original concept. So you definitely want to play around and see all the different ways and sometimes your solution might not be what people need. And so it's like, okay, what's the real problem?
Yeah, and to add to that, like, what if I'm wearing something on my head? Like, would I go out, or would I like be comfortable going to a supermarket with that thing on? Like, would I be like stare weirdly? So like, yeah, those the social aspect, you can use the person that is sitting right next to you in order to feel like, how are you feeling and how are they feeling about like the way they're looking at you. Maybe that's uncomfortable, and that's something else that you can start putting in and plugging in the DEI component as well, right? Cool.
So what would you guys say are some of the some sideways thinking here that you can use?
So I can start maybe. I found this, which is like a cover that you normally use when you go out, but since everybody's sitting inside, nobody uses it anymore. A big portion of our digital health app is actually people recording themselves and people with injuries. So you might want to ask people with like a knee injury or recent knee surgery patient to like, hey, put your phone like 6 feet away from you and like record yourself while you're doing an exercise to either like evaluate later or send it to a PT. But this is something we did actually early, but you could also do it with this. Just like give this and be like, hey, put this on the ground somewhere where it can kind of see you as if it's your phone, and like see if that person can physically do that or not. And if it's intuitive for that person to like find a way to like position this so that the camera views him or herself, which is also a big question we had, like, will people know, or do they need a tutorial? Or, but at least young people are very intuitive. They just put it against like a table or something.
Perfect. That was a great example. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
There's one that I know of where someone was trying to test like a tire pressure gauge service, and they used bath mats for people to drive their car onto, because they were testing the social implications, like Matthias, like you said, like if people would do it, is that a way that they would want to engage with your product? I think to some extent we always think about like the form factors and all of that instead of how people, it's always return to your user and how they're actually, are you meeting their need in some way?
Yeah. Definitely. Thanks, Kira. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Thanks for being creative with us. All right. So now what we're going to do is you had identified about 6 different hypotheses or however many you were able to come up with. And what we want you to do to ask yourself is, what are quick methods you can use to rapidly test, to accept, reject, or reframe your hypothesis? So for example, we believe that stacked washer dryers will enable our city dwelling customers to store their washer dryer units in small spaces. So an example of low fidelity prototypes would be, well, mostly, first what I would start off with is looking at the height of existing washing machines with good reviews on Amazon. And then, and then I would also follow up to that is kind of stack some boxes to identify heights, or look at ergonomic data online for average women and men to find that good height, that right height for them, right? If it was too high, that would not be useful. And then if they're struggling also to take things out of the washing or dryer, then that's something else we want to consider. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time here. Adrian, if you don't mind, I think it's about 15 minutes. She's our timekeeper, so I want to check in with you. But we're going to give you guys some time to just think about how you might create a low fidelity prototype to answer your hypothesis. What we're going to do now is we're going to ask you to prioritize your hypothesis. What we're looking for is you're going to prioritize it around impact versus effort. So you want to add your hypothesis number into the quadrant. So impact is defined as perceived value to the customer, urgency to answer this hypothesis, and net benefit to building that, to overall building out your product. And then effort is defined as level of time and resources to dedicate that's required to prototype. So you want to be in a location where it's less effort and more impact. So that's where we want to focus on first as a prototype, as a hypothesis and prototype pairing. So I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes to do that as well.
What if you don't know how much impact your the way to test it might have. Like, what if that's part of your challenges that you're trying to prioritize, but you don't feel like you have enough information to be able to?
That's fair. I guess a question that I have then is, do you have ones that you're certain of, and can you focus on that as you gather information in parallel to those ones that you're certain have more impact? So I guess like inputting, let's just say you're testing out a certain hypothesis that you feel more confident has a larger impact. Could you input in some pieces or some questions that can help answer the remaining kind of impact question that you might have? That's one way. Another is like, I guess it's a known unknown. So that's a good thing, because then at that point, you can start to figure out how to bring it into a known. But yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think take your best guess now, primarily focus on ones that you feel confident in, and then the rest, that's how I'd go about it, at least. Then the rest, you can take some time to gather more information. But I would love to hear if anybody else has a comment to that based on their experience. I think that's a good discussion question.
Just one more thing to add is like, okay, like if I spend a lot of money doing it, is it worth it if I don't know exactly what I'm looking for? Like, how far is it gonna take me? Or like time as well as a factor, right?
Yeah. So if it's quick and easy to test, you might as well do it, even if you don't know how much impact it would have.
Yeah, because that may trigger you to like some other ideas that are gonna like guide you into like, oh, maybe I know I'm closer to that answer than I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I have one for healthcare. So in healthcare, you usually have multiple stakeholders. How do you balance that in this process?
Ooh, yeah, that is a great point. Well, so part of my background is quality engineering, and you have the stakeholders of the business. You have the stakeholders of so sometimes there's certain risks within that. You have the another stakeholder is a patient, and another is a physician, and whoever else might be in that process. This is the way I order it, because it's just like a rule for myself as an engineer. But you have to, so you evaluate the risk to the patient. That is the first, that's the primary, because you can't do anything else if there is an impact to the patient. So I evaluate the risk to the patient, and then I would say physician. Well, those kind of go parent, and then last, then I would say would be business. But you need to evaluate it. Like, I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to you more about this separately. But there is such a thing as they're called FMEAs. So what that means is essentially you're taking out like, this is all the potential things that can go wrong, and this is how I could potentially mitigate it, and this is the testing that I need to do to mitigate that. And you develop that risk out based off of the catastrophic risk to all the way to minimal or negligible risk. But that's a whole nother process specifically dedicated to the medical device industry. We can talk about that another time. It's like,
I would jump in and say for like generalists, and you're gonna think about, you have a customer and you have a user, and like when often if you're like in a double-sided kind of marketplace, or you're helping peer-to-peer connections and things like that, and if you're like I'll use an ed tech company for example. Like if you have users that are students, but you're also making maybe a platform for faculty or teachers to provide teaching content or things like that, and students also use the platform to engage with those courses that they're taking, right? Who's your customer? Who's your user? Like maybe you're selling into the school district, but your user is the faculty and students. That can feel confusing, and like you don't know who you're supposed to be focusing on. To me, your actual product, like who's the active engager and not just like a passive consumer of the content of it, your user is going to be the teachers, the faculty, the people who are going to be building their course content and using your platform in an active manner, even though you're selling to a school district. And so if you're not aggressively pursuing value to that user, it's meaningless to think about the school district. So that's my one, like, yeah.
Perfect, Kira. Thank you.
That's interesting, Kira, because we have like physical therapists and patients. And like, for example, one of our pilots showed like quite high compliance of exercises, which like physical therapists value a lot and physicians value a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then all the patients said it was just such a pain in the ass that like they knew they had to do the exercise and they did them. But they said like, I don't want to use like none of them like would pay for it, let's say, right?
Right.
So that was like a situation where we were like, okay, like which conclusion do we draw from this? Do we not pursue this, or do we? Because it gives value to one of the two.
That's super interesting, and I would want to know, like, who are you selling it to, and then like how is that? Because I could think about it a little bit from something like maybe it's like John's product with like parents and children, right? Maybe we can think about like parents and children as an analogous product line or experience or space to something like physicians and patients, and say like, okay, well, even though the patient might not like it, if you're selling into the healthcare system or to physicians and they love it, then they're going to make their patients do it. Like, and even if the patients don't like it, if they're getting positive outcomes from it, that might be more worth it to pursue delivering quality content to your doctor than it would be to make something that that patients really like. That could be like next step. Like your MVP is just doing something that physicians really like, and then you can figure out prototyping later to make it slightly more user friendly for the actual people who are sick.
Thanks, Kira.
But it's not an easy it's not an easy answer.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so I think what we're going to do next, I'm going to pass it over to Adriana here, and she'll take us.
Cool. So what we're gonna do next is like, okay, we have written down our hypotheses, and we have written down like potential ways of testing those out with low fidelity prototypes. So now let's play a little bit with that, right? I'm gonna break you up into 2 groups, and then like you can take one of the hypotheses for one person and the prototype, and start playing with that idea and help each other out in that development. So use something quick and easy that you can test here, and play together into just that one idea. And we have, so it is 1:43, so we have about 10 minutes to do so. I know, like, yeah, each of you want to develop your idea for your own product, but like, let's just play around with one idea for each team and see where it takes us. Maybe like that is helping each other out a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, we're going to spend like about 10 minutes or so. Okay, cool. So there you go. Okay, we got you back. It was a quick time for you to brainstorm on one person. So maybe one of the 2 teams can share the idea of the prototype out, and maybe we can all learn from each other and see how we can apply it. Anyone from the first room? Well, I'm gonna pick on Joe. You're on.
All right, yeah, I'm on the hot seat. As far as the prototyping, when we're talking about low fidelity prototype, something that was briefly mentioned, we didn't get to hash it out too much, was using like, hey, in my case, it's a mobile app that presents information in a timely manner. So why not just use text messages, like existing technology, like text messages, email, or calendar notifications to try and, you know, because everybody says, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I'll test it out, but basically see not what they say, but what they do from it. Like, do they actually read it? Like, what are the timestamps between the time of when it's sent to when they actually read it? And when it's time for feedback, in if anything, do they actually even respond to the feedback form? You know, or did they just give one-word answers? You know, so things like that was kind of like, I don't know if that was kind of like in line with the low fidelity prototype you're talking about, but that was kind of briefly mentioned, an idea.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's fine. So do you get the feedback from the users whenever they read it, or is it, well, like you see that they read it, but
I think more or less it's measured. You know, it's like we take note of it. Okay, you know, hey, maybe that gives us insights as to if this is actually useful, or if it's just more of a nagging, like they don't really care for it too much. You know, the fact that they read it, like, you know, it's helps us at least think, okay, we might be onto something. If they don't read it, then okay, we might have to change ideas.
that's cool.
That's a good trend. I think that's a great transition. Yeah, or like at least evaluating the text or email calendar perspective. Yeah, great.
Yeah. What about Crystal? Do you have a quick insight into what you talked about?
Yeah, it was like a bit confusing because there is a two sides. So we want to serve NGOs and also corporations. So it was kind of difficult to distinguish between like my hypothesis at the beginning. So it was complicated. So at the end, what I wanted to know is like how to make more efficient. Like I believe, or we believe that the like a method to validate NGO data will make easier for corporations to find the correct NGO to get the funds. So one way to test that is giving like different NGOs, like a group of NGOs with the different information, like to the corporation, just one corporation that has money like available to give CSR funds. So then to evaluate that with them, like how they are choosing which NGO they will take. Therefore, I can see which kind of information they are looking for and how they are selecting the NGOs that they want to, like they trust.
Nice. Yeah, and curious complementing your idea.
Yeah, like Crystal, we were talking about, it's like thinking about presenting maybe the same NGO to a CSR, but like 3 different aspects of them, and then seeing which one that CSR cares about the most. Like they were different NGOs, but they might, you know, you don't have to tell them it's the same NGO. That could be an interesting way to see which evaluation method they care the most about.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Oh, awesome. So we have 1 more minute left here. Thank you guys for sharing. So some key takeaways, you know, when you combine your problem statement with a hypothesis and low fidelity prototyping, you can really develop your product out quickly and get a better, or at least get a better understanding of your user. And really just identify whether the problem that you're tackling is a problem and whether your solution needs to be tweaked or pivoted, or if it's effective. And then finally, just you do not need tech tools to prototype. At the beginning, it's really important that you utilize your time and resources effectively. And if you guys want to learn more about us or contact us for anything into the future, whether that's consulting or just chatting about getting some sort of mentorship or holding another session like this, you can contact us at imagini5.com. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm glad we got to know you all a little bit. Anything else you want to add, Adriana?
No, thank you so much for participating. And yeah, like try paper and pencil, try Post-it notes, try the cardboard box, and a couple of things as the video showed us, because that's all you need in order to test. low fidelity prototypes and quick hypotheses, and maybe steer and pivot your idea away. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.